We're here at VGS at the IGDA conference, and we're about to hear the writer, creative director, the man about town, the man who created essentially one of the best games of the year, The Last of Us. Neil Druckmann is here, as you can see, and we're going to hear him talk all about, his game, what it means for the culture. Can't wait for it.
And then over the next several months, Bruce and I kind of hold ourselves in a room and picked bits and pieces of the story that we liked, kind of came up with environments that were interesting to us, and we put this thing together, this pitch that's now going to be much closer to what you saw in the game. So the following is a slightly shortened version of that pitch. I tried to shorten it some more, but I couldn't, so it's a little long, but I just want you guys to see the state we're at when we finally pitched this to our bosses and to Sony. So this was the story of The Last of Us. So it starts in present day. The idea of the cordyceps has already jumped to people. Chaos is starting. People are attacking each other. It's already kind of affected this small rural town. And we get to meet our hero, Joel. And for Joel, it's all about this moment, this prologue, is scooping up his daughter and escaping. She's the thing that he cares for the most. And the military's been called in to try to contain this thing. There's chaos, there's shooting people, and in all that mayhem and trying to escape, Joel's daughters get shot, and on that we slam to black. And then the story picks up 20 years later. And we see what 20 years has done to this man, how he went from a loving father to someone that's willing to do anything to survive. He's crossed all these moral lines. He's almost unrecognizable as the man we saw before. And Joel operates within this black market of this quarantine zone that's run by what's left of the government. It's martial law, so it's very oppressive. There's checkpoints. People get scanned for infection. Anyone scans positive is executed and killed on the spot. And Joel has a partner, Tess, and she's kind of a leader of this gang that Joel is a part of. And Tess is just as ruthless as Joel, if not more so, and we get to see that when they go and torture a guy that kind of stole some of their shit. And then they're approached by a doctor that lives in the quarantine zone, and she's wanted by the military, and she hires them to smuggle her out of the quarantine zone. That was the first inception of Marlene. But she's not alone. She's got this 14-year-old girl with her, and they both have to escape together. So Joel is reluctant now that he sees this girl. It reminds him of his daughter, but Tess convinces him it's just cargo, Joel. So the idea is they're going to approach this checkpoint where Tess's brother works. When no one's else around, he's going to open the gate for them. They're going to sneak out, bring them to this militia. They're going to take over, then they'll return. Joel and Tess will return to the city and get paid. But as soon as they open the gate and they try to do that, there was this convoy that was coming back in. They spot them. Why the hell are there civilians trying to escape this quarantine zone? Scan everyone. And they go down the line scanning people, and Ellie gets tested positive for the infection. And now she's dragged to the side. She's about to be executed. Joel remembers his daughter. He stands up, wrestles a gun out of the soldier's hand. This firefight breaks out, and when all the dust settles, Tess's brother is killed in kind of the firefight. And now Tess holds Joel responsible for this thing, and they split ways, and Joel escapes the city with Ellie and Marlene. And they get to the outside part of the city, where now we see what years has done to the infected, and we have to fight them. The crew kind of escape by the skin of their teeth, but not before the doctor is bitten and starts to turn. And before she turns, she tells Joel, the girl's not infected, in fact, she's immune, and there's this group on the other side of the country that's trying to find a cure. It's up to you to get her there. So at this point, they leave Marlene with a gun. She kills herself because she doesn't want to turn. And Joel is stuck with this girl, and together they go on this mission across the country, where we get to see beautiful vistas and run into wild animals and run into different kind of wild animals. And the idea was that, again, coming back to that concept of the more time these characters spend with one another, the more they change one another. And, Joel's kind of humanity comes out, whereas Ellie becomes much more capable. whether it's learning how to pick up a gun and shoot people or pick up a pipe and break their face. And the idea, again, was to build up to this climactic moment where Joel gets incapacitated when Tess, this relentless force from his past, catches up with him. And he gets so injured that Ellie now becomes the protector, both in story and in gameplay. And we knew we wanted this part to be really long and significant to get you to feel what it's like to be this 14-year-old kid now trying to protect this man. And now when she's kind of cornered and it looks like she's done for, he comes back to life, and now they work together to kind of escape the worst of mankind, these cannibals. And eventually they find this lab out on the West Coast. And the doctor, in order to run some tests on Ellie, he has to put her under, like anesthetize her, and he runs some tests, and when he looks at the results, he comes up to Joel, and he says, "It's complicated." And on that we slam to black. And then Ellie comes to, and she's in the back of a car, and she's kind of confused. She's not sure what's going on, what happened to the cure, like the whole mission. And Joel tells her, "There is no cure, we're too late. Whatever antibodies you have, they're all gone. We had to leave the lab." And they get in a fight because she's not sure she believes what he's telling her. But again, Tess, this relentless force, slams into the truck. She's now with this their old gang, and they're trying to like get revenge on Joel. And they surround Joel and Ellie in this ranch house. In order to escape, Joel finds this air duct that only Ellie can fit through. He tells her, "Sneak out, steal Tess's car. I'm going to fight them here and distract them. I'll meet you back, keep going west towards that city we've heard about, where supposedly they're trying to kind of restore humanity or restore society." Reluctantly, Ellie escapes. As Joel, you kind of have this climactic fight with your old gang, but eventually you get captured by Tess. And now we see just how far Tess has come in this relationship and how she's willing to torture Joel to make him suffer. And just like she lost her brother, she wants to kill Ellie in front of him just to make him pay for that. And Joel tells her, "There's nothing you could do to me. There's nothing you could cut. I've already essentially sold my soul to save this girl." And on that, we flash back to the lab where the doctor was telling Joel, "It's complicated." And then we hear the rest of that conversation, and the doctor says, "Well, she has the cordyceps inside her, but it's mutated in such a way that it's no longer kind of like affecting her brain, and I believe if I can remove it, we can produce a vaccine, but it's so intertwined with her organs, it's going to kill her." And Joel says, "Well, then find someone else." And the doctor says, "Well, I'm not really asking you, it's just what needs to get done. I just felt it was a civil thing to do to tell you." And before the doctor can call for help, Joel kills him. And the idea that Joel has come so far with this girl that has saved him physically, mentally, and in some way spiritually, that he's willing to kill anybody that might threaten her. And as Tess is finishing torturing Joel, she realizes he's not going to talk, and she levels a gun against his head, and on the gunshot, we slam to black. And then we're back with Ellie, and as she's driving, she pulls off the side of the road, and she realizes Joel was lying to her. He's not going to get away, and she turns back. And for a second time, you're playing as Ellie. And you're sneaking into the ranch house, you're climbing up the stairs where Joel is being tortured, and now you hear that conversation again where Joel was being tortured, and you realize you're back in time. And in fact, it's Ellie that bursts into the room right before Tess was going to shoot Joel, and she ends up shooting Ellie. Sorry, she ends up shooting Tess. She doesn't shoot her. She doesn't shoot herself. That would have been a bigger twist of the end. And then Ellie and Joel kind of escape from that ranch house, and the story ends with them kind of on this precipice of San Francisco, the city that they've been hearing about. They can see electricity in the distance. And Joel looks at Ellie and smiles, and he's hopeful that they could have a future in this world, even without a cure. So that was the story as we pitched it, probably mid to late 2010. So it failed for kind of a lot of reasons. The biggest of which, I think, is Joel's motivation. Like, Joel went from like being this kind of like hardened survivor to this father figure in an instant. As soon as Ellie reminded him of his daughter, he was willing to kill soldiers and protect her and just throw his whole old life away even like abandoning his old partner. And every time we'd kind of pitch the story, we'd hear kind of like the comments like, man, Joel's turning pretty quickly. And again, some of this issue was my letting go of, like, I got attached to certain ideas and it was just hard to kind of release them. The other problem that we had was Tess. I guess in some ways this was a bigger problem where her motivation was even harder to buy into. Here was Joel's old partner, and to no fault of his own, her brother died, and now she's going to go crazy and take her whole gang and pursue him across the country for a year. It's like she just seemed like a psycho. Like you didn't buy into it. It just seemed kind of a weird thing that we stuck in the story just for the sake of having this antagonist. And again, every time, but the problem with both of these things, and why I held on to them for so long is I didn't want to let go of that ending. That ending in my mind was so cool when you get to play Ellie a second time and save Joel. But we just approached it from all these different angles for so long, and eventually it was like, okay, what if we just cut that ending? What if we didn't end it there? So one of the things that we did that kind of fixed both of those problems with Joel and Tess is we changed Tess's role. And Tess now went from this kind of hardened survivor to someone that has this unconscious desire where she wants redemption, even more so than Joel. And when she hears that Ellie might be immune, she clings to that. And then she's the one that gets bitten instead of this doctor. And what that bought us is, one, we could take kind of Tess out of the picture and she no longer was this antagonistic force. But she also, now Joel is taking care of Ellie out of his obligation to Tess, which you bought because they lived together for such a long time and they had this relationship. And that kind of helped with Joel's story because it bought us a lot of time for Joel to be alone with Ellie. And for you as a player, being as Joel, you get to see how cool Ellie is and you want to care for her and you want to form this bond with her. The other issue, so once we removed that, is okay, well, what the fuck do we do with our ending? Now we have we don't have this personal antagonism. You get to this lab, because we decided we're going to, the climax would be at the lab instead of this ranch house with the doctors, because that's kind of the peak of Joel's arc. And there was a programmer that suggested, well, what if you brought Marlene back? What if this person that clearly knows about these people out west, well, they could make it out west. And bringing Marlene back also had this interesting thing that it helps humanize the counter-argument to what Joel was doing. And we did our best to not treat Marlene as a villain. This is to just say, here's a person that cared for Ellie just as much as Joel did, but she just made the opposite decision. She felt like it's okay to kill one to help the many. So this was the new ending that we had at the time. Joel makes it to this lab. Ellie kind of drowns trying to save him. Joel gets knocked out, and when he comes to, Marlene is there. And Marlene tells Joel they've already made this decision to operate on Ellie and remove kind of the cordyceps from her. And Joel makes the same decision as you saw in the other story where he kills the doctors and picks up Ellie and tries to escape the lab. But he also shoots and kills a helpless Marlene. Again, it helped us kind of take Joel, or what we thought at the time was taking him to the end of the line to show just how far he's willing to go, that he's willing to shoot and kill someone that might pose a risk to Ellie in the future. And he lies to Ellie, just as in the kind of the previous version. And in the end of it, they ended up at a different town, but it's the same kind of concept where Ellie buys the lie, and they walk off towards this town as the camera pans back, and we get that hopeful beat, that hopeful note that we had before. So why did that fail? The tone was wrong. This is kind of, it gets into some of these gut feelings are hard to articulate after the fact, but it didn't feel right. The characters, both Joel and Ellie, their arcs didn't go to the end of the line, which is this concept that Robert McKee talks about, that character arcs are kind of these philosophical arguments, and you got to take that argument all the way to the end, and if you don't, then you kind of have to keep exploring it. I'll get into more of that in a bit. But it just wasn't honest. So what does that mean? Again, that concept of writing honestly. So I'm going to go off on a tangent before coming back to the ending. It's going to get a little philosophical, so bear with me, and it might get a little bit sappy. But so what does it mean? Well, maybe It means that you find an idea that really resonates with you. And no matter how many times that idea fails, you stick to it because for some reason it speaks to you. And you have to keep exploring it and keep coming back to it and bring it to life. Or maybe it's about letting go. And it's knowing that idea will become way stronger through interpretations of people much more talented than you. Whether it's actors, animators, composers, designers, programmers, a team of some of the most talented people in entertainment. And that you find a core of people that you really trust, that understand story, and are going to call you out on your bullshit. And those things are definitely true, but it still doesn't help us answer like what is honest and what isn't. So is there something deeper that we can find?